This month's SBE Webxtra is brought to you by Wheatstone, maker of the intelligent IP audio network used by studios around the globe. The AES-67 compatible WheatNet IP intelligent network is the most comprehensive end-to-end studio network system in the world, with a full line of consoles, software apps, IP audio appliances, and third-party add-ons for any studio workflow, size, or purpose. Wheatstone. Well, good afternoon. I'm Chris Scherer, Member Communications Director of the Society of Broadcast Engineers and the co-host of this month's episode of the SBE Webxtra, the SBE chapter of the web. This is a monthly SBE meeting, and while we usually try to hold it on the third Monday of the month, we had to shift a little this time. The SBE is the Association for Broadcast and Multimedia Technology Professionals, with about 5,000 members, mostly in the U.S., but also around the world. The host of today's SBE Webxtra is SBE board member Kirk Harnack, who is also the chair of the SBE Social Networking Committee. Hi, Kirk.
Hey, Chris, thanks very much. Glad to see you. And I'm particularly excited about our guest and our topic today. It's going to be pretty interesting. Vinny Lopez is going to be with us. He's also a board member and a chair of one of the committees. We'll let him talk about that in a few minutes. We've got some exciting video for you, for me, Chris, for you, Chris, for me, and for our audience. I'm just delighted to see this video and get Vinny's explanation to go along with it. So that'll be coming up. Chris?
For you, Chris, for me.
All right. We're going to start off with the SBE member update for December 19, 2019. I'll tell you about some upcoming webinars by SBE in a moment, but I want to tell you about one that was presented last week and is available on demand. It's called Workbench Tips. Radio World columnist and Telos Alliance Western Regional Radio Sales Manager John Bissett presented a combination of tips from his column and discussed the conversion to AOIP and what AES-67 means to you. Why am I mentioning a past webinar? Well, this one is free thanks to the Telos Alliance sponsoring it. So as you tally your SBE recertification points, if you find you're short on a category or a couple of points, this is an easy way to get there. So looking ahead to January 16, look for Wireshark Webinar Part 1, the introduction. Stephen Poole, the Market Chief Engineer for Crawford Broadcasting, presents an introduction to Wireshark. He'll provide a brief review of the TCP/IP networking, an introduction to Network Data Packet Analysis 3, and simple examples of network analysis and troubleshooting problems. On January 22, you can watch the Manager's Engineering Notebook. This presentation will review 44 tips to help all managers with broadcast engineering. Paul Tinkle, president of Thunderbolt Broadcasting World Headquarters, presents. While Paul is not an engineer, he understands engineering from the manager's point of view. This session provides ideas that engineers can put to use at work the very next day. For info on webinars by SBE, go to sbe.org/webinars. Looking further into 2020, the SBE will again present the Leadership Development course. It's August 4 to 6 in Atlanta, and you can learn more and register to attend at sbe.org/LDC. The SBE has presented the course since 1997. Rodney Vandeveer, a professor of organizational leadership and supervision at Purdue University, brings more than 30 years of industrial and business experience in management positions in human resources, training and development, and manufacturing. On the certification side, if you want to take an SBE certification exam, here are some dates to keep in mind. Local exams will next be held at chapters the week of February 7 in 2020. The application deadline is December 31st, 2019. SBE certification exams will also be held at the NAB show in Las Vegas on April 21st. The application deadline for that is March 9, 2020. If a local chapter exam is not convenient for you, private proctoring is available. Contact the SBE National Office for details. And for more information on SBE certification, go to sbe.org/certification. And that is your member update for December 19, 2019. Kirk.
Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate that member update. Always glad to hear what's going on and get reminded of what I need to sign up for and do. And I think I've got a recertification application right here. If you have one of these, yeah, this is the application that needs to get filled out, right, Chris? So that I can keep my
I believe so. A bit of a glare, but yeah. I think that's right.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. SBE recertification by professional credits. All right. Good deal. Okay. Let's get to our guest today. And our guest is Vinny Lopez. Now, Vinny's a past president of the SBE, and now he's a board member. And Vinny, welcome into the Webxtra. Glad you're here.
Thanks, Kirk. Thanks, Chris.
Were you using a prompter, Chris, by the way, to that intro?
I don't know what you're talking about. I memorized every single word of that.
Okay. That's something I was wondering about, because that went a little too smooth, but whatever.
So, Vinny, you look like you're coming to us from your place of work, a television station. Tell us about what you do for a living.
I am in our war room here at CNY Central, which is WSTM Television, WTVH, and CW6, the Sinclair-owned stations in Syracuse. I'm chief engineer here. So
good deal. And as you've been a past president, you've been president of the SBE.
Yeah.
I've always been curious to ask you, so I'll ask you now before we jump right into the great videos. What prompted you to run for president of SBE? And of course, Chris Scherer is also a past president too. So,
Right.
Vinny, what's your story on that?
The two gentlemen that originally cajoled, coaxed, encouraged me to run for the board of directors were Terry Vaughn and Ed Miller, who were, I think, president and vice president back in 1997. That was the year that the first fall SBE meetings went on the road to various regional conventions. And in that year, they came to Syracuse, and we were talking, and they sort of conned me into running, and I finally did. So, and it just went on from there.
well, congratulations all the way around. And you were cajoled by
whichever.
You were cajoled by the best, certainly.
Yes. Indeed.
So there's been so much talk in the industry for years now. Well, because it's happened a couple of times about repack and those impacts. Lately, and at least in my video feed on YouTube and my feed on Facebook, I'm seeing occasionally video of helicopters carrying these big television antenna loads. And I'm thinking, this is really fascinating. Isn't that really expensive? Why would you use a helicopter? I mean, isn't that the more expensive way to go as opposed to, I guess, a gin pole? And and the topic on this show is not all about helicopter pics, but I think this is a really cool way to start the show and to educate the rest of us about how this works. So kind of set it up for us if you don't mind.
There's a lot of stations that are repacking. Traditionally, when you have to use a gin pole to hoist an antenna, it takes longer to rig and do everything than it does to have a helicopter pick that antenna up on the ground and set it up on the tower, and you're done. Basically, your tower crew can then connect it up and in very little time, instead of days of rigging and hoisting and doing all that stuff. Yes, it is more expensive to do a helicopter lift, depending on the hours and the number of picks you're going to have. It could be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 more, but it happens in one day. Ours was done in one day.
Are there stations that go ahead?
No, and when you've got all the number of stations that are involved in the repack and the limited number of tower crews, anything you can do to save time is huge.
Gotcha. By the way, in the whole repack thing, I'm being in radio, I'm not aware of all the financial maneuverings that go on, but I take it that your TV station doesn't necessarily directly have to pay for the helicopter.
No, the FCC will reimburse for most of the expenses incurred in your repack, and if they sign off on a helicopter, so be it.
Good deal. Well, we shouldn't waste any time here not looking at pictures and videos. So would you please introduce our first video and make sure our producer Suncast has got it queued up here.
The video is called Images, and these are some random images of what we were going to lift onto the tower and some other things going on at the site. So go ahead with that. As usual, the crew has their lift and their bucket and all the variety of things that they will need. There's the new antenna sitting on the ground, ready to be rigged. Along with the lifting points, they had started to rig that with their chokers and stuff. Another view of it. It is a little shorter than the bat wing that was coming off of the antenna by probably about 20 feet. So as you'll see further on, these two wedding cake sections, as we call it, go underneath. That's Duke and Lulu right there, because I've never met a tower crew that didn't have at least 2 or 3 dogs with them. And here they are in their natural state, you know, annoying each other. So they were fun. It brings a good thing when they've got pets there on site. So, you know,
that adds
anyway,
a bit of levity to otherwise challenging days.
Right. And it's a stress reliever as well. But what had to happen in our case was there was a 70-foot Channel 3 RCA batwing that had to come off the tower. And then this 50 some odd foot new combined UHF antenna was going up along with 2 8 to 10 foot sections of tower to get the same height or an equivalent height to where it was with the batwing.
Okay. All right. Is that Copter 1? Is that the video?
Copter 1. Let's go to Copter 1 video. This is about 11 in the morning on the day of the lift. The helicopter was arriving, and you can hear this thing coming from quite a distance away. This is equivalent to a Sikorsky military helicopter. That's what it is. It's the civilian version of it. And they had come in from Boston, from the Boston area somewhere. They were they found a day to squeeze us in.
Cool.
So.
And that helicopter, the company that does so much of this work is Erickson. Is that right?
Erickson Aircrane is the name of the company. They're based out of Oregon, but they have copters all over the country. And we did not directly contract them. That was done by our tower crew company, Stainless, or FDH Velocitel, or whatever their name is today.
You told me yesterday that this Sikorsky helicopter, I guess the equivalent of an S-64, and it's the one that it's got room for the crew in the front, and the rest is just all hollowed out. It looks empty. It looks like, oh my gosh, what happened to you? And and it's got a couple of big engines and not a whole lot of fuel tank, right?
No, they have 2 hours of fuel on board. Anything longer than that, they have to go to the airport and refuel. They have to allow time to go to the airport. So if you're going to be shut down for longer than, let's say, 5 minutes between picks, as they call them, they have to shut the helicopter down to save fuel. Sometimes, if the job's big enough, they'll bring a fuel truck on site and fuel it right there. But this one wasn't that big.
So many TV stations do. Your station is using drones to do a lot of aerial photography nowadays.
Absolutely, we have a drone. We have a drone team. The way Sinclair does it is there's 2 people that go out on every drone mission, as they call it. And here is from about a mile away. The helicopter crew got a little jumpy when we pitched the idea of the drone to them, and back a little bit. Now, as you can see, this is the batwing coming off of the tower here. They're hovering over it while the tower crew is loosening the bolts down below. And as we get further into this video, they're going to lose their focus here. Where they were was they were about a mile south of the tower location at a greenhouse that we work with, who comes on our newscast with regularity and brings plants and things in. But they were on her property shooting this. Now they've got the antenna loose from the tower, and they've got it picked up over, and now they're flying it around. Now, if you watch this, it's going to get scary here as they come around the corner down here, and you see the antenna appears to be at quite an angle from the perpendicular. And when I saw this drone video after, I said, oh my God, is that for real? It should be starting right about now. See how it's starting to drift from the perpendicular there? When they come around the corner here to make a landing, look at it. Look at that thing. That's 7 tons hanging there in the sky.
Oh, wow. Where was the marshaling area? Where are they going to drop this thing at?
They're going to drop it. If you look over at the base of the tower, they're going to come in, they're going to come around, fly low in, and behind the tower towards where the drone is, there's a big field that we had cut some trees down in that they're going to land in and drop that thing on the ground. I mean, right there.
Yeah.
Look at it.
That's like 45 degrees.
Yeah. So, but
and by the way, Kurt, don't say drop that thing. That's not in the plan.
No, not until the time is right do they hit the release button and let it go. But they're coming in here, and they will eventually set one end of it down on a piece of wood that the tower crew had prepared there, and slowly let the other end down. And then when it's on the ground, they'll hit the release button and pick themselves up again. So. And
in a few minutes, by the way, we're going to look at some of the apparatus that helps keep the load stable from under the helicopter. You don't want that thing swaying around too much. Obviously, that pilot was familiar with what that thing would do, and he, I'm sure he's not the kind of guy that with 14,000 pounds under him says, "Hey, y'all, watch this."
And if you notice closely in some of those shots in those videos, Kurt, what we'll see later is there's a glass bubble that looks backwards from that helicopter where the gentleman who operates the crane, let's say, sits and is in contact with the pilot, telling him what to do.
Okay, we'll watch for that.
Yeah, when we get close up of the helicopter, you'll be able to see it. So, but yeah, there it is. They've got it down on the ground. It looks like, so we can bail out of this.
So they didn't let you fly the drone right up close to it. Yeah.
No, they were a bit jumpy about that because even though we're trained and we have pilots that are licensed and all that, they still say you got to give us some space to operate. So
how do they coordinate the final loosening of the bolts that, like holding that bat wing to the tower? How do they coordinate that? Because they can't just take the bolts out and let the tower let the antenna just stand there. A little puff of wind could blow it over. How does that work?
Typically what they do is they go up in advance, the tower crew, and they'll loosen all of the bolts except for maybe two. And once the helicopter is coming into place, they will start to loosen those two. They'll hook it up and then finally drop the bolts out and give the all clear signal, and then they can just pick it right off of the transmission line.
Wow.
So, same thing when they're same thing when they're putting a new section on. They'll go with one bolt in each leg first.
The tower crew can go ahead and unbolt the final elbow or whatever the RF transmission. Right. They can get rid of that because that's not structural.
Right. That's not structural. That can go long before the helicopter shows up. And since this antenna was not being used, this was more of a counterweight on that arm because this hasn't been used since the analog days. Well, it was actually in use as the receive end of a 6-meter repeater at 850 feet.
Of course it was. Why not?
Yeah.
And what was the gain of that antenna?
What's the gain?
You could probably work it all over New York State if you tried hard enough. So,
oh my goodness, wow! And now they left it up there for the counterbalancing weight that it provided.
Right, that it provided. Some of the other videos
14,000 pound. Yeah, right. And there is another weight on another arm. Let's just leave it up there for 14,000 pounds. That seems nuts, but okay. It also, I guess, it seems right. What about the period of time when that weight goes away? A few hours before the other antenna's put up, and does it weigh about the same? The second antenna,
right? There's enough stability built into the tower where it's not going to be an issue in the short term. So, long term, you definitely want to balance it, but short term, you can work on it and do whatever.
Let's look at the next video. Pick 2, I think, is the one you want.
Pick 2, yeah. This is where the wedding cake, which is the short section that the antenna was mounted to, is coming off of the tower. This is cell phone video, so excuse my shakiness here. Our photogs are on site too, and we'll see that professional done video later on. But yeah, they're getting this thing off the tower. This was troublesome for a couple of reasons. One of the bolts that attached the wedding cake to the tower had run. For whatever reason, someone replaced the original stainless with a non-stainless bolt. So we're hearing all these things. The helicopter, after it set the antenna down, had shut down, and we're waiting for them to go back up. And we're hearing skill saws up there and hammering and things. They were trying to break that wedding cake loose from the tower, and they had an awful time doing it. It took them about 40 minutes to get that thing loose to the point where they could get it lifted. So it was a pain.
Wow. Yeah. And it's got to be loose, but not. I guess they've got to know that they can just loose, but not falling off.
Right, exactly. Because like you said, ideally you want a day when there's not a lot of wind, and that was the day. But still, as long as they have one bolt in each of the legs of that thing in there, it's not going to go anywhere, and they can get those out fairly quickly. But they found one stubborn bolt that just wouldn't come out. So, but anyway, moving on, pick number 4. This is where they're adding the next sections. Pick 3 was the first one that they added. You can see it on the tower. Here comes the next section. What amazes me about this is those are not very big targets they're trying to hit there. Okay. And to be able to get a helicopter with all its air turbulence and rotation and all the other factors so it lines up so that they can attach that piece is mind-boggling to me. There's many factors involved in this to get this right, you know?
There are some other videos on YouTube where it shows a close-up of the antenna going onto a wedding cake and the tower crew grabbing the antenna, pulling it kind of into place. Great coordination with it, because you don't want to, the helicopter pilot doesn't want to tug it back away, you know, once it's been grabbed onto. And then, of course, they use... I guess they use those I forget what those wrenches that have a point at one end of the handle to kind of help, you know.
I forget the term they use for them too. Yes, I forget the term that they use for them, but yes, that's exactly what they do. Is they stick those up in through and try to guide it onto those things. So.
Tell you what, after we watch after this video, we're going to take our break. Let's finish up this video though, and we'll because we'll put the antennas on after our break.
Yes.
You said that helicopter was noisy. It has 2 engines, right? 2
Pratt & Whitney jet engines. Yes.
Yeah.
It's very noisy. I'm surprised we didn't get more calls from the neighbors, but they were all watching from the field across the street as well. And it's not a very populated area. And there, I think it's on there, and I think he's cutting it loose. There he is. It's loose. So
at the release.
Yeah.
How tall is that tower?
That's an 850-foot tower.
Okay. Looks pretty stout too, to withstand wind and ice.
Yes. It's I think it's a 12-foot face tower, and it's built to carry a lot of capacity because you can also hang antennas below those cantilevered arbors, so you can hang below it if you want. So it's built to last. So anyway,
hey, if you've just joined us, we're talking with Vinny Lopez. He is on the board of directors of SBE. He's also the chairman of the sustaining member committee. We're going to hear about that before we finish up the show. Want to hear about sustaining membership, and we've got more to look at. We're going to put the antennas on that tower in our next segment. Chris Scherer, let me turn it back over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Kirk and Vinny. We're going to take a little break here and let you know the SBE WEBxtra is made possible by the generous support of our sponsor, Wheatstone. The SBE WEBxtra will be right back.
Hello, I'm Jay Tower of the Wheatstone, and today we're going to discuss basic planning for your modern AOIP control systems. Many people are still making the transition from analog to digital. And just because you have a pile of equipment and the current number of the faders in your control studio doesn't mean you need to migrate that to your AOIP system. Some of the first things you want to do is take an inventory of all your analog, digital, microphone sources, and where those sources live. Next, you're going to want to come up with a system topology where we're going to deploy switches. You may have a centralized application where we put everything in the rack room, or you may want to use edge switches. Additionally, we're going to think about cabling and infrastructure. Please get with one of your manufacturers and ask for AOIP planning guides so you can plan your next AOIP audio control system. This is Jay Tyler. Until next time.
Well, once again, we thank Wheatstone for sponsoring the SBE WEBxtra. And did you know that by watching this webcast, you have now earned 1/2 of an SBE recertification point when you recertify? Keep that in mind as you're tallying your points. Let's get back to SBE board member Kirk Harnack and Vinny Lopez. It's the Kirk Harnack.
Chris, do I get a half point for every time I watch it?
No, sorry. One view per point claim.
Per episode. Yeah, per episode, per show. Okay. Well, okay. All right. All right, thanks. Hey, we're talking to Vinny Lopez. Vinny Vinny. I'm sorry, I didn't get the title at the TV station. Are you director of engineering over there? Vinny, you're muted.
Hello, are you there?
Yeah,
Kurt,
there you go.
Can you hear me
Perfect.
now?
Yeah.
Chief engineer.
There you go. Okay, chief engineer.
Yes.
At the Sinclair stations in Syracuse. Bunch of stations.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
By the way, with this repack, obviously you are changing your RF channel.
Right.
What, one or more stations?
Actually, two of them. The
Yeah.
NBC station is what this is all about. That's the one on that tower. The CBS, which is right there over the shoulder, is in phase 8. That is on a 1948 500-foot Blawnox self-supporting tower. We're not sure what. Yeah, we're not sure what that is going to do or encompass when it comes time to change the antenna on that, but we shall see. It's coming up fast in March.
Still the original
It might be. I don't know. Maybe. There's a lot of steel in that one, but it really can't hold a lot of weight, is what it boils down to. It's not very beefy, but it's old. It was moved once or twice too. So
1948.
Yep.
Wow.
1948 Blawnox.
That's almost as old as the Blawnox down the road from me at WSM. It's 1937. Yeah. So that's just 11 years. Wow. That's been there a while. Yep. And it's currently holding up your vertical.
It's holding a stacked pair, analog and digital, and we don't need the analog anymore. So it's going to come out, and we'll have just a digital on top there.
Wow. That's going to be amazing. All right. Well, we're not finished yet with this project, so let's look at our next video as you want to carry us through it.
Pick 5, the new antenna going up. There it is. And like I said, it's a little shorter than the other one. That's a combined antenna. We are combined with the local PBS station, WCNY. We're a channel 19, they're a channel 20, so it made sense to go with a combined antenna, you know. Much the same as we were prior to repack. We were on 24 and they were on 25, so we had a combined antenna there, and it worked well, so why not do it? This is a lot lighter of an antenna. I think this one is only 8,000 pounds. So this one will be a little easier on the tower if there's such a thing. But it's 50 foot and he's bringing it in. That's a long stretch of real estate between the copter and the tower to land that thing. So it's tougher with a longer piece hanging below the copter to get it, you know, So once again, this is cell phone video. We've got the real video coming up here in a couple minutes, so that you can actually see a lot.
I would think that would be so crazy dangerous for the tower crew member or two that reach up and grab that thing and start pulling it in, and then and then just a wrong move of a couple feet by the helicopter pilot can spell disaster there.
Exactly. And I'm sure they're trained enough to know not to get between the steel structure and the antenna or the piece that's coming down. And they're also in radio contact with the copter up there. They're giving them instructions. One of the copter ground crew is actually up there on the tower with the tower crew, acting as sort of the safety officer, because there's a safety briefing that happens first thing in the morning on the day of the pick, and they lay out all the guidelines and the rules and the do's and the don'ts. And once the aircraft, as they call it, is on site, nobody gets in there without first calling up there and saying, is it okay to let this person in, you know? So that's how it works.
I got a question for you. Is there a lot of downdraft from that rotor?
You know what? We weren't close enough to the tower to really feel anything. But I am fairly certain that there would be. There's a 300-yard
there
perimeter.
has to be some, but I'm just thinking about the guy that's sitting up there waiting to capture the picked antenna in this case, and how much wind is blowing over him right now.
Oh, I'm sure there's a ton of it, and they're all anchored off quite well to the structural members there. So,
wow.
Speaking of wind, another question on the wind. Was there a wind speed, just natural wind speed maximum that was in place before the crew would say, we won't fly if it's above X miles per hour or X knots?
I think the number they said was they prefer to fly under 15 miles per hour winds. If it's under 10, the conditions are ideal. But 10 to 15, they have to, really think it over and see what they want to do. So, and, it happened to be a fairly calm day. There was not a lot of wind, maybe 4 or 5 miles an hour, and it was sunny and everything worked correctly the way it should. So, but anyway, yep, there it is. And he's peeling off now. And as soon as he laid this antenna on top of the tower, they disappeared. They headed for the airport to fuel up and on to their next gig. They're done. And the ground crew, the ground crew,
the ground crew scampered down the tower.
Well, the ground crew, what they did is they stopped down at the ground to drop that big square thing, because that does not travel with the helicopter. That's on the ground crew's truck. They build that on site, and as soon as they drop that on the ground, they headed off into the sky.
And we'll have a look at that in a minute. Do we have this? Do you want to look at the ground cam video, or do you want to?
Yeah, let's look at the ground cam video first. Yeah, this is
a professional shot. Okay.
Right. Our drone photographers are also news photographers. So they were real cameras with the extenders and the big lenses and all that stuff. And they were able to capture some of this stuff. This is them working on that troublesome bolt on the wedding cake. See him hitting the bolt with a hammer, a rather large hammer. That was the troublesome bolt that they were beating on for about a half hour to try and get that thing loosened up. I think they finally ended up sawing it off with a portable sawzall that they had with them up there. And, that's the rig right there that hangs below that's supposed to minimize the twisting.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sure. It would, of course, minimize twisting. Sure. Yeah. Because you're grabbing connection points on either side of the antenna.
Right. He's coming up to lift that
here.
Right. He's coming up to lift that wedding cake section in this video, right? Or this piece right here. Another weird thing I noticed is look at that tail rotor is moving so slow. The shutter on the camera.
I was just going to say that the sample rate between the rotor and the frame rate are just enough.
Just enough where it was barely spinning. And also there's another thing here. Those blades are not cutting through the antenna as it looks. It's just the angle.
Right. Right.
Because each of those candelabra legs is 75 feet long. So they're quite a distance apart. And they've got it hooked and rigged here. And in a couple seconds here, it's going to be flying away. They all have to get safe and down below it. So
I was going to ask if they get off of that thing before it gets pulled away.
Yeah. If not, they're in for a wild ride.
By the way, in the center of the tower, is that an ENG receive antenna?
Yes, that's an ENG receive antenna and an LED high intensity light.
Okay.
Now, so the box on the back leg is a counterweight because there's no antenna mounted on that southern leg. That is a counterweight to sort of balance the tower, the weights. And there he goes. Just that easy. He's going to set it down. And I think that's still in the field out there as well. And here comes section 3, or pick 3. This is pick 3 that we didn't see earlier, putting the new support section for the new antenna on the tower.
So it looks like one of the techniques is, do they have some, I saw the lines coming off the bottom of that section. Are those cables that they can then pull on down through the acceptance holes on the tower structure itself and things get aligned, or
those
are they just to grab onto?
Those are hard lines inside the tower section that will feed the antenna. They're too long, the sections, to get them in between the legs of that tower base section.
Sure. Actually, I was talking about something else. I'm talking about the little rope-like structures coming off the very bottom of the pick.
Yeah, hanging below.
Yeah. Those are grab wires, I think, for them, so they can grab onto it on the tower and just try and wrangle it into place.
See, I saw some video on YouTube where the grab wires were actually somehow connected to bolts that were already in there. In other words, they pulled those grab wires and pulled them on through the holes that they were waiting for.
Yeah, no, they didn't do that here.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I don't think they did that here. They might have. I was not up there when they rigged that section, so I can't really say for sure. It might be what those are. I don't know.
It's one place you don't want to have. You don't want to say, "Hey, wait, my finger's in there."
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a Haas helicopter, isn't it?
And that is one big chopper. Yep. So, and I think what they do is the object here is to get at least 2 bolts per leg in while the helicopter is above them. Because there's 5 guys up there and they can do that quite easily. And then they pull the release mechanism and boom, off they go. Once they get the all clear signal.
You know, a horrible malfunction would be if the release mechanism didn't release.
Yes. I think they may have a backup as well. In case of that, I'm not sure, but yeah, that would not be good if that happened. So,
wow.
Anyway,
all right. Not wanting to stop at all, we've got one more video to look at. This is your music video.
I have to give credit to one of our photojournalists, Matt Landers, who created this. So let's have a look at that with audio.
So that's the old wedding cake, the short one.
Yep, the short one coming off. Going back down.
And so the taller wedding cake for the shorter antenna did the job of keeping the new antennas at about the same height above average terrain.
Exactly. Right. It keeps the center of radiation at about the same level.
Center of radiation, yeah. And if it was the tallest thing on the tower, it'd keep the be there to keep the tower top at the same FAA height that it was before.
Right. And I think that's the second part of it, that it does do that as well. But like I said, the old digital antennas that are on the other leg stayed in place as a counterweight, as well as the counterweight on the back. So
on the existing antenna that's over on the right-hand side of the screen, the white antennas that are stacked, that's a standoff between the top of the bottom antenna and the bottom of the top antenna. That doesn't look like a lot of steel, but I guess it's enough, isn't it?
No, it doesn't. It's enough, yes. And I don't even think it's steel. My guess is it's copper and brass transmission line of some kind.
No, I'm sorry. How it's actually bolted.
Okay. I thought you meant the line on the side.
Yeah,
so there's not a lot there, but it does hold it. Yes, it does hold it. So,
wow,
it's been good.
I have learned a lot about this whole process, and I've seen videos of some TV stations where they do these helicopter pics, and I guess they have a marshaling area, a parking lot nearby, or maybe in the TV stations. Well, it couldn't be too close by because they don't want to be anywhere near the guy wires, do they?
Right? No, they don't. And we have a rather large hunk of property up there on the hill that we own, and we cleared out some trees out of a field on the side there, and everything was marshaled there. And in the grand scheme of things, there was not a lot of real estate needed for it because there were not a lot of components that actually went up there and came down. So it's not like we're putting 3 or 4 antennas with all their associated components. It was one antenna, 2 sections of tower, bringing down one with a short wedding cake, and that's it.
If you were advising an engineer, who hadn't been through this before, what would you tell them to watch out for, make sure of, before they start a tower crew and helicopter pick?
Make sure that you bring a comfortable chair to sit in and a set of binoculars to see what's going on up there, because it's a long day. That went from about 11 a.m. and they finished just after 5 p.m. to do all that.
And make it a reclining chair to save your neck.
Absolutely, because you're going to be looking up at that tower. So,
and even though you showed us just a few minutes of video, maybe 15 minutes altogether here,
right?
Obviously, those are the highlights of the day. There's a whole lot of downtime between.
There's
the
a
action
whole lot of downtime, and one other interesting thing. There is also a co-located, it's on a stub tower next to us, 100 kilowatt FM station. And the crew asked that we have them reduce power just because it was such a large signal. They did not want it interfering with any electronics or communications, because that helicopter's fly by wire. It doesn't have cables.
Okay.
So they came up and went to 30 kilowatts on their backup antenna on the side, and everything worked out.
So you had a lot of faith in your tower crew to make all the arrangements for this helicopter pick.
Yep,
and how did you actually work out finding the space? You said you had to cut down some trees to make a marshalling area.
Yes. Yeah. There were a few trees in the back, probably 10 or so, that had to go by just to get enough space. But there's enough up there. We have a lot of property up there on the hill, and it was not an issue to come up with marshalling space. That they could do it easily.
Gotcha. I imagine for some TV stations that are in an urban environment, their marshalling area may have to be several miles away before they can find something really appropriate and usable all day long.
Exactly. And that's where you get into having a fuel truck on site to fuel the helicopter, because it's going to take time to fly in and out. And you've got, it would just have been a logistical nightmare if we'd have had to have staged that somewhere else. It really would have. So.
Well, Vinny, thanks you so much for that. We have another topic to move to. Is there anything else you want to say about helicopter picks and repacks?
No, that's pretty much it. So,
how did you let your viewers? How did you let your viewers know about they need to rescan their TVs?
Oh, there was via the web, via over the air, via news stories. Just all kinds of communication, rescan on this day, you're going to rescan at 10 a.m. We had been on for a couple of months, a temporary low power transmitter and antenna setup, and it killed our coverage area. It really did. However, you do what you have to do. I mean, the end result was worth it. It's a great signal, and the people that couldn't get it for 2 months are now happy and back again, and all's well.
Let's hope they all came back. So, sustaining membership. You're the chair of that committee. Yeah, I remember you're talking to lots of SBE members here on this webcast. Yes. It's not necessarily a general public webcast. So, what would you like to say to your fellow members?
Sustaining membership is specific to companies. If you've got a company, or if you know of a company who could benefit from SBE sustaining membership, let myself or Debbie Hennessy know and who the contact is, and we'll reach out to them and see if we can't get them as a sustaining member, because there is some benefit to companies for becoming an SBE sustaining member.
Those benefits include, I'm sure, advertising and outreach. Right.
You will get access to a database of all the SBE members for use in whatever mailings or distributions you'd like to do. First of all. Second, you're recognized at NAB as a sustaining member, recognized in our signal, which goes out how many times a year, Chris? 6?
6.
6 times a year.
Is correct.
And excuse me, little tickle here.
You're also listed on the website while Vinny clears his throat.
Yeah, you're also listed on the website. Help me out here.
We also have a directory, a buyer's guide, if you will, of sustaining members sorted by various product categories. So if you're looking for something specific, you can also search by product category to get you in touch with the appropriate SBE sustaining member for that need as well. That's also online at sbe.org.
Yes. So if you if you're an engineer and you know a company and you know someone well there, and talk to them about it, and then get a hold of us and let us know, and we'll take it from there.
And there are all kinds of allied industries having to do with broadcast. You know, anything from towers, of course, tower lighting, all the RF transmission stuff, all kinds of studio stuff, and even things that broadcasters still go through a lot of, even office supplies. You know, if it's a Uline or some other big office supply place.
Exactly.
There's and even if it's it could be an insurance type company. There's lots of things that broadcasters commonly use across the whole U.S. like any other business. And sustaining membership helps to say, look, we support your industry. We want you to learn. We want you to make things available like the Society of Broadcast Engineers and all the benefits and webinars and associations and certifications that SBE brings. And an important part of the SBE's budgetary income is from sustaining membership.
Exactly. You are correct, Kurt. I don't know what's going on over here in the building, but I heard a giant crash just a few minutes ago. So I wonder.
Yeah, as the chief engineer, you're gonna have to wonder.
You wonder about things like that.
We've covered.
If I can interject one thing real quick, Vinny mentioned sustaining members get access to the SBE membership database for mailings for contacts. I just want to make sure that it's clear that it's U.S. mail. We don't spam the world with email addresses, so don't worry about that. But they do get access to the mailing address database. Just a point of clarification.
Good deal.
And I should have pointed that out.
Mm-hmm.
So.
You were busy clearing your throat or listening to the place self-destruct or something happening.
I forgot to bring my drink in. Okay, there.
Well, knowing Chris and notwithstanding Vinny, and also knowing John Poire, I will say that the SBE does subscribe to the highest standards of ethics when it comes to releasing your name and your mailing address and things like that. So no email spam from sponsors, but if you want a catalog, if you get brochures, whatever kind of outreach that a sustaining member does via the mail, there you go. That's one benefit that they get. And I like getting mail that has to do exactly with my industry. I have a stack of mail right here on the desk that things I need to go through. So there you go. Chris, cool. Well, first of all, Vinny, thank you so much for being on our program and talking to so many of our hundreds, if not 1,000 or more SBE members, giving us great look into the helicopter antenna picking. That's just awesome. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks.
And good luck with your sustaining membership drive. And again, if you're an SBE member, you probably are watching this, a company that ought to be supporting SBE. Let Vinny Lopez know. Chris Scherer, I'm going to hand it right back to you to wrap up the show. Thank you.
All right. Well, again, everybody, Vinny and Kirk, glad to be part of this program today, and love the video. Love the fact that we had a little video presentation on today's Webxtra. Thanks to you for watching today's SBE Webxtra. This episode will be available on demand on the SBE YouTube channel. Give us a day or so to get that together. And as I mentioned earlier, by watching this webcast, you have now earned 1/2 of an SBE recertification point when you recertify and renew your SBE certification. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Wheatstone, for supporting the SBE Webxtra as well. Watch for the announcement of our next SBE Webxtra, the chapter of the web, next month. Usually on the third Monday, but we adjust a little bit now and then when we have to. So on behalf of Kirk Harnack, I'm Chris Scherer, SBE Member Communications Director. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next month.